Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Context. I'm Shannon Williams from Obot AI, excited to be here with my co-founder, Darren Shepard. And today we're joined by Fred Barthelet from Alpic. We've got a fantastic talk. But before we get into that, just a quick update on all things going on in the AEIF, as it has been a busy couple of months. We are in the middle of a run of events that are kicking off around Asia next. So if any of you are in Seoul, Tokyo, or Shanghai, we will be in Seoul in August, and then Shanghai and Tokyo in September before we go back to Europe for the first time since we were in London last year. I know, Fred, you're going to be in Amsterdam at the very least, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm keen on being in Amsterdam. I'll be there September 17 and 18. Can't wait to see all the folks down there. It's always like a family reunion, those events. I love them quite a lot.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, I know you were in New York and you were in San Francisco and you were in Amsterdam. Yeah. So you've been to every one of the big ones.
Yeah, I've been to every event. Yes.
Yeah. So and the next one is in Amsterdam. So that will be a big one. I can tell you, we just have started really putting together the agenda for Amsterdam, and it looks fantastic. It is going to be a really popping event with lots of great talks. But Asia is looking amazing as well. I know I am not going to be in Korea, but I'll be in Shanghai and Tokyo, and very much looking forward to seeing what type of adoption is happening in Asia. So we are continuing to drop new episodes of The Context. We've been releasing these pretty regularly all summer, and we've got, I think, each of the next few weeks booked up. I'm actually out next week, but we're going to try to put together an event to still talk about the new release, because the latest release of the MCP spec is coming out, I think, on Tuesday, right, Darren? We expect to see the new spec drop on Tuesday. So we'll be hopefully still getting together in some way or another next week. And looking forward to that. And then after we get back, we've got a very rich set of events. So with that, I'm excited to welcome Fred. We are going to be chatting about Skybridge today, Fred. And if anyone doesn't know Fred is the co-founder over at Alpic. He has been really right in the middle of the MCP revolution from its beginning. And the whole Alpic team are based in France. But you kind of, if you haven't noticed them at events with their ski goggles on, I don't know, they do tend to stand out. So Fred's gonna be talking. Skybridge is an amazing project that they've been working on really for a while. He was on with us about 6 to 9 months ago, kind of introducing the first release of Skybridge, and now Skybridge is hitting 1.0. So excited to have you here, Fred. Excited to hear about the latest with Skybridge, and yeah, take it away, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be back here 6 months after the initial launch of Skybridge. Thank you again for having me. I'm delighted to be here and share with you what we've been working on with the whole Alpic team, building MCP apps as flawless as possible so that everybody out there can build their own. I'm going to be quick on the slides just to give a bit of context for those of you who are hearing for the first time about Skybridge. But we'll jump right after that into some cool hands-on demo. I will spend a little bit more time because that's something I really want to share about what we built as an open source project to make coding agents better at using Skybridge. So that if you're also building some project of your own for the open source community, you can implement the same patterns in your product. Without further ado, let's jump into a bit more detail about what Skybridge is. Skybridge first commit dates back from October 2025. At that point, the MCP protocol was almost a year old. And it was at that time, during the OpenAI Developer Summit, that Sam revealed for the first time a preview of what MCP app later on will be in the form of ChatGPT apps and Apps SDK. Apps SDK was at the time the only way to provide UI into conversation powered by ChatGPT and browse existing capabilities from a marketplace store-like interface. And it was released back in October 2025. Just for the little story, the reason for Skybridge to start in the first place was Apps SDK, when it was initially released during that event, was just a bunch of documentation put together by the OpenAI team on how to build those UI interface on top of MCP server so that it could render in conversation. And we decided to build the missing software development kit that implemented all patterns described in the documentation OpenAI released in the form of a Skybridge package. And it was the initial intention when it started in October 2025. With this in place, first few apps got created and added in the ChatGPT marketplace and Cloud Connector marketplace. And they were a way for brands to, in addition to provide context specific to their services, UI and especially brand directly inside the conversation so that they could still live where users were starting their journey online. It's not inside the Google search anymore. It's inside the ChatGPT or Claude or any conversational agent conversation. And it was an easy way for brands to be featured in those conversations and to showcase their brand product and services. As the protocol grew in adoption, we started implementing more stuff on top of the initial release of Skybridge. Especially by the end of 2025, Apps SDK let room for the official MCP apps extension in the specs and was released to other conversational agents like especially Claude, but also VS Code, Goose, that started to implement the same apps official extension of the MCP protocol. Back in those days, we started at Skybridge working on one of the core features that we think is really helping people build in the space, which was polyfills. So despite all those clients relying on the same spec, or the same MCP app official extension, all clients have their own quirks on what they support, what they don't, what they implement, and what they require, which is outside of the scope of the protocol. Apps SDK from ChatGPT still lives on. Some features are only available in this specific protocol and are not part of the official extension. And in order for Skybridge to be considered as the best way to build apps that are available, that will be able to be rendered in every client, we started working a lot on making sure that features missing on some client could be polyfilled with custom implementation when they were lacking and implemented in various ways depending on which client is actually rendering the app. So polyfill in the form of making developer build one app that can render everywhere was one of the key selling points of Skybridge and part of what we were keen on working to make sure the V1 included everything that's needed to make it work on every client. Another feature that we've been working quite a lot on is tunnel and the ability for people to see in those clients as they start building the initial result of what their app will look like without having to go through the hassle of actually building it and deploying it on any services. Tunnel really enable your local development MCP app to be featured inside production conversation on ChatGPT, on Claude, on VS Code, on Goose. It's packaged into Skybridge and it makes your local development available in those conversational agents. And both those features really enable Skybridge to take off and to enable builders out there to start building apps very quickly. Don't worry, all those features I'm going to demonstrate in hands-on demo just after. I just wanted to go through the history of how we came up with the V1 that we're working with at the moment on Skybridge, and what are the killer features that we think are going to make your journey as a builder extremely nice and delightful. Just before we officially released V1 in May, there was one last piece of features that we packaged into Skybridge that we call the dev tools, which is everything that you can use locally before you actually render your app for the first time in an actual conversational agent, be it ChatGPT, Claude, VS Code, or Goose, to understand how your app is going to behave, simulate condition in which it will render, and have a quick feedback loops that you can iterate on for you as a human or as a builder, and for your coding agent as an agent, to have all necessary context it needs to make the necessary change before shipping your app into production. Those dev tools we've been putting a lot of attention into. They come packed with stuff like the hot module reload, a local emulator of the context of the host that is going to render your app, the ability to expose with the tunnel that we talked about before, your app straight from the interface, access it from the playground, audit it, and submit it right away just from the interface. And that's not just for you as a human, but also for your coding agents. Of course, we packaged into the DevTools the necessary skills for coding agent to interact with DevTools and with the actual code base of your server, but also various tools to allow it to better understand what's the current status, the current rendering status of your app. Because it's not a standalone application per se, it's not a web app that you're building that is that can be started by itself and inspected using normal ways. We had to figure out tools and APIs for your coding agents to see what your, for example, app will look like once rendered into ChatGPT, without having to go through the full hassle of putting together an app, shipping it, and digging into ChatGPT and discussing with it. Skybridge V1 was released like 1 month or 2 months ago. We're still continuing, continuously improving on it. We've been working a lot, for example, on authentication subject, making custom providers for all auth server out there in order to make it very easy to add authentication to your app, especially to support mixed authentication, which is a pattern where some part of your app is public and some part is behind an authentication wall, which is a pattern that we see more and more apps developers using in production on ChatGPT and Claude. We've been working quite a lot as well on making deploying from Skybridge local environment feels like an easy step, so that you can go straight from experimenting locally on your machine to sharing a server, working server, and working app with your friends, colleagues, and even publish it on the store for it to be accessible to millions of users. We're keen on keeping on making Skybridge very delightful experience. We've seen quite a lot of company building with Skybridge and using it in production to power their apps. Just to give you a bit of perspective on where we're at V1 launch, we are roughly having 100,000 downloads of Skybridge every month. We're reaching 2,000 stars on the GitHub repository. By the way, you can give us a star anytime. Would be very delightful to have your support, making this project even more popular. We are powering in production around 1 million tool calls every month across all apps that have been built with Skybridge. And this number are the one from V1 release back in May. They are continuously growing, and we're very, very happy with the growth we've been seeing with Skybridge. Without further ado, let's take a closer look at what it looks like to build with Skybridge. So when you start your journey with Skybridge, one location to go to, skybridge.tech. This is where you'll find the starting guide to help you build your first app, the whole documentation to understand what you can build with Skybridge, and of course the quick summary of the steps you have to run through to have a first working environment locally that you can play with. Just for the sake of this demo, I've already started a local environment. And as soon as I do so, I am welcomed with DevTools I was mentioning before. So DevTools is really one of the key features of the V1 that we shipped back in May. It's your control tower when building with Skybridge to see what your app will look like. It looks like some other dev tools that you've been working with in the past. You can, on the left, see all tools that comes packed with your server that your coding agent may have added throughout the development journey, that you can inspect and trigger to actually call the underlying running server. So, for example, here is the onboarding demo MCP app that we package with Skybridge. When you start a new project, you're prompted with the ability to choose from a starting kit. And this one, the onboarding project, the demo project, is the one that you're seeing here. It comes with a tool called Start that allows you to start a demo onboarding process. I will onboard Shannon. So just filling in the form with the required inputs defined in the tool, I can execute it. And if a view from the MCP app extension is packed together with this tool, it will be rendered inside this area. Here is another tool that doesn't comes packed with a view. When I execute it, you see that the tool output is taking the full available space of the DevTools. There is no view to interact with for this specific tool. Only the start one comes packed with a view. You can still inspect the tool output that came back from your locally running MCP server. But what's taking the biggest part of the DevTools is the actual rendering of the view. This view is not just a simple rendering of your application locally. It's not supposed to live by itself. It's always intended to be bootstrapped by a hosting client responsible for provisioning every resources it needs to perform its task, meaning displaying results inside the conversation on a conversational interface like ChatGPT or Claude. Because going through the hassle of going on ChatGPT, starting a conversation, making sure that ChatGPT invokes your MCP app and renders the tools is a feedback loop that can take quite a lot of time. We recommend builders working on MCP app to use the DevTools as the fastest way to get to the point where they can see what their coding agent built, put together before actually shipping it inside conversational agent. So here you can see you have the view as it will be rendered inside the conversation. You have a bunch of controls which allows you to simulate what the host would send to the view for it to use those values and render accordingly. For example, the temp settings of your host, whether you're using ChatGPT in dark mode or light mode, can be a value impacting the rendering of the view. And without having to change ChatGPT theme from dark to light to see the effect on your app, you can, from the DevTools, change this setting as it would be done if you change the setting in ChatGPT and see the effect being directly shown inside the view. So here, for example, the onboarding view comes with adaptive styling based on whether you're using dark mode or light mode, so that it doesn't burn your retina if you're using dark mode and doesn't want a full, very bright white piece of view inside your conversation. And so we built inside this demo view the fact that it's using the host current theme to use dark or light mode. And so when you change the setting, you see it reflected inside the view. Other context can be customized from the host side. For example, the current language that's being used to power the interface of the host, whether you're using a mobile or a desktop version of the host, and some controls on whether view can be rendered inline, picture-in-picture, or full screen, which you can also play with if your app is behaving differently based on the current layout used by the host. This is where making changes feels very, very easy because if I change some code in my code base, like if I use, oh wait, you don't see my screen. I need to change the settings so that you can see more than this. Give me a second. Up.
While you're doing that, Fred, so for people who are downloading this, your users are almost universally developers. It sounds like you're basically working with app developers and like AI developers. That's who you see as kind of the target audience for Skybridge.
At the early beginning, back in November 2025, October 2025, I would have said yes. But more and more, we see builders using Skybridge. So people that don't necessarily have any technical background and capabilities building apps, but we make dev tools so code agnostic that even people without those technical skills can start using Skybridge. And we've seen people that are not at all developers use Cloud Code by the past for various projects. Skybridge is bringing MCP app specific knowledge to Cloud Code with the needed interface to better see what you're building without requiring you to have technical knowledge. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it definitely fills your head in that way. Were you going to share? I think you were going to share
the whole screen. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to give you, so this is the project that I'm currently showing. I will put it a little bit bigger, maybe not that big, otherwise it's unreadable. This is a project that I'm currently showing inside the DevTools. I didn't make any change from the initial Bootstrap project when you run the create Skybridge command, the one that the docs mentioned as the only command you need to run from your terminal to start a Skybridge project. Once you've done this step, you can delegate every change that I'm currently showing to your favorite coding agent, whether it be Conductor, whether it be Cloud Code, whether it be Codex, whether it be Cursor agents, whatever you want. All can very well interact with Skybridge. I'm going to show you that just after. One thing that I wanted to share with you was on my onboarding component. Here, for example, I have the not this one. I have this part of the component that is saying greetings. If I make changes to this, it should be here. If I say welcome instead of greetings, for example, I would see these changes reflected straight away in the DevTools, which makes it a very good inspection tool for builders to see the outcome of what their coding agent built. Because unlike a normal web application, you cannot just start your browser and see what are the results of what the last 2 hours of Cloud Code has been outputting. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And we've made these DevTools, by the way, accessible to agents. So this interface is exposed by Skybridge when running locally on your machine. When you deploy it in production, it's not accessible anymore. But for development purposes, you as a human, you can access it. but your coding agents can access it too. Here, for example, I had a conversation with Claude on taking a screenshot of a specific part of the view with a mascot wearing some hat. And I wanted to have the screenshot in an English context with the dark mode enabled on mobile. But I don't want to manually have to go into mobile, English, dark mode, input the various location that I want and go to the location where I have a mascot wearing a specific hat, because I want my coding agent to be able to go there, see by itself how is rendering this specific view, and make appropriate changes that reflects my initial intention. Maybe not having the cowboy hat, for example, in the available options for the mascot. I could try to shot for these changes and inspect by myself on the inspector the result, or I can ask my coding agent to actually do that for me. And one thing we do to make any coding agents aware of the DevTools is use two pieces of technology. First one is the Chrome DevTool MCP, which is an MCP server packaged by the Chrome team as a way to give control to your favorite coding agent of your navigator with additional controls. Most of you might already be familiar with this one. Once again, made for builders, it's just some configuration in your favorite coding agents to add this MCP server. And we put inside our inspector or DevTools web MCP tools to make interacting with the DevTools much easier for the Chrome DevTool MCP server. If you open up, for example, Chrome DevTools, you can now see when you are on a specific website a new WebMCP tab that shows which tools are available on the web page that you're looking at, so that any WebMCP compatible browser can see those tools and use them. Chrome DevTools MCP server is one of those client-enabled WebMCP browser, and it can see the tools that you have here. So here you see the start tool, which is basically the tool that is exposed by your server. You can see the get fortune cookie tool, which is the second tool exposed by your server. And you can see a specific tool that we also package inside Skybridge that allows the coding agent to change display mode, current theme, current local, and device type without having to go through the hassle of clicking here and selecting the correct value, or clicking here. And this makes interacting with the DevTools for a coding agent much faster. Here you saw that it navigated to the DevTool. It's listed all the tools that are available. Use the tools it's tried to use the set view options, but didn't successfully execute it because it first needed to start the onboarding process. He started it with a random name. It listed again the available tool so that it has the tool to change the settings. I jumped on the wrong one. Yeah, this one. Yeah, it put display mode in lines, dark theme to true, mobile device to true, and the local to US, and then was able to take the screenshot in just a few steps. And this, before we implemented those specific tools, those specific WebMCP tools in our inspector to make it coding agent friendly as well as human friendly, it would take ages for coding agents to figure out that it could run locally the DevTools, open a browser, find the various controls to render a view, and click on the various buttons on the side of the view to adjust for context that it was aiming for in order to render the view in the correct conditions. Those tools really speed up a lot the process and make it way easier for him to get context on the actual rendering of the view.
Fred, I think
do I make myself clear, or?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think this gives a good. Was there anything else you wanted to demo? I'd love to get into a bit of a chat about, where you see MCP apps at right now.
Yeah, just maybe to finish the small round of what comes in V1, and we can jump to this conversation right after. I was mentioning Tunnel and Playground as stuff that we packed into the Skybridge dev tool as well. So you can see here, there is a small tunnel button that I can click anytime to expose what I'm running here locally on a URL that you can then put into Claude or ChatGPT. Before you go in Claude or ChatGPT, you can even use Playground, which is an emulator of ChatGPT that we provide for free, that you can use to interact with your server. So if I say, welcome, Fred, you will see, welcome me as Fred. You will see the server being triggered to render the same widget that I was showcasing here. And finally, we added the deploy button so that you can deploy easily your applications once you're satisfied with what you see on Alpic. With V1, we made Skybridge deployable on Alpic, of course, but as well on Cloudflare, Vercel, or any environment that might accept container as a target package. So you don't need to deploy to Alpic. You get a lot more feature out of there, but you can deploy anywhere you want. Feel free to give Skybridge a go if you want to. Once again, the go-to location to start building is skybridge.tech. And I'm happy now to discuss a bit more about where we're at the moment in terms of MCP app adoption. Do you have any specific topic you'd like to start with here?
I mean, honestly, Fred, I'm just very curious. You've been talking to obviously a lot of teams that are doing this. You're working with your clients and your user base. What's in a success story? Like, what's someone who's gone through this? They've built something, they've got it out, they put it in the marketplace, and they're seeing impact. Like, help me see that.
Yeah. We've been working with quite a few different industries, and the ones that are been the keenest on going to this new location were travel industry, especially at first, and then larger e-commerce, hospitality, insurance, selling goods and stuff online, of course. But everyone that had at some point desire to target a consumer base wanted to go on ChatGPT and Claude because they figured out most of the conversation where they wanted their brand to be to be noticeable, were now happening on those surfaces and not in Google anymore. For the past 2 years, they've been investing a lot on GEO with companies like Profound or Peak or similar plays where they could understand what ChatGPT and Claude were telling people when specifically asked about their product categories or their product specifically, but without any controls at all on the way their brands get featured in those conversations. With MCP app, it's not just the UI addition in conversations that changed the game, it's the ability to control parts of the system prompt, information, and UI that really sold the experience to most of the brands we were speaking with. So a way for them to package some parts of their brand inside the conversation without relying on a web search and the injection of the correct context into the LLM itself.
No, I get the why. Like, the why I'm in on. I'm asking for, where's the success story? Like, where's someone who's invested in this and now they're seeing adoption? Because I think that's my big level of hesitation at the moment with MCP apps, especially, is, apps in general inside of ChatGPT and inside of Claude haven't seemed to they haven't yet hit a point where I'm using them regularly. And I'm not seeing a lot of cases where I think I'm not hearing about other people using them heavily. And so I'm curious, like, at this point, we've had apps for about 6 months to a year, and I think, at least for me, my first impression with them, I was super excited. I mean, I use a lot of the apps that are in there. So I went in, I was trying to use Apple Music. I was trying to use the
Posthog. Did you try the Posthog one?
no, I don't use Posthog a ton. So I was trying to use the trail one, right? There's one for like finding trail.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called, but I haven't. I mean, even a paid user, right? So I'm like, oh, I'll use that. That's great.
All trails.
Yeah, All Trails. Thank you. And I found I had really disappointing experience. I was like, wow, okay. Apple Music was a disaster. I couldn't even do anything with it. I couldn't create a playlist. A simple thing like, hey, create a playlist with songs from these 4 artists. You know, I like this. No, didn't work. I can't create playlists. It was confused. It didn't execute. So maybe it's gotten better, but I found it to be ineffective. And then All Trails, it was kind of like the best I could get to do with it was search. It was like, okay, it would search for an All Trails and show it to me there. But again, it was a little bit like, you know, before it would have just given me it. And the problem was I had to then call it out. It was like I had to say, use All Trails to find something, which tended to kind of go against my workflow when I was using it, right? Which was like, hey, I'm going to be here. Are there any cool trails in the area? You know, it wouldn't just automatically say, yeah, here's the All Trails. It would say, no, here are the cool trails. Like, so I'm like, I'm hiking in, you know, in this area, and ChatGPT would just say, here are the trails to go hike on. And then I would think like, oh, I should go look at those in All Trails. So I'm looking for the success of this type of, because it makes sense, right? At its core, it makes sense that I'd be able to transact within these projects, but I am not finding that I'm doing it. And I sort of have as much incentive as anybody. I'd like to see this work, but I'm not using it. Are there success stories that I'm missing? That's what I'm asking you for. Is there something you're like, yeah. This company is generating a lot of money or a lot of traffic because of their MCP app?
Yeah. I'm sharing my screen now on a different slide that you can share if you want to.
Yeah.
This is our first success story, and it dates back from a long time ago. It's one of the first customers that worked with us in the airline industry. And what made his experience took off was the dynamic discovery. And it was not where we expected it, like in ChatGPT, where we thought most of the consumer traffic would come first, but it was in Claude, where dynamic discovery was first released end of March. And it really triggered the 20 times traffic from what they used to have back in February to where they were in May when we released this success story.
Is it public what the company is or what the use case is?
Yeah, that's kiwi.com. That's one of the first people we've been working with. So searching flights, that's what their app is doing. Ability to give you flight price that you can book. You continue the booking experience on their website, but they basically packaged a very efficient search flight tool. And from that point onwards, you complete the booking elsewhere. And they generate revenue from this. I can't share exact numbers, but it's not a significant part of their revenue yet. They have built SEO machine, especially on traditional web and mobile experiences, but they are still generating revenue from this new acquisition channel. And considering it like they've transitioned from experimenting on the channel to making MCP one of their existing for the duration of their next year channel of acquisition. You see what I mean? And it's not the UI part of
dynamic
MCP
discovery
app.
mean? Like when you say dynamic discovery, that is discovery without me calling it, right? Without me saying I want to use it. Claude. So can you show us this? Like show us what that experience is like. Can you demo it?
So dynamic discovery now exists both on ChatGPT and Claude. It's under control. So on ChatGPT is what you will see here. Connector search.
Is that on by default?
A good question. I think not on ChatGPT and yes on Claude. They both have not the same level of adoption of dynamic discovery. And when I shared the story of Kiwi, I mentioned that the initial success was on Claude because this is where they first released dynamic connector search. Like if you look on Claude as well, in capabilities, you have settings here called connector search that will be able to search for connectors and surface the ones that are relevant to the conversation. And those two settings, and whether they are activated by default, is what drives MCP adoptions on consumer or not. In the case of ChatGPT, not. In the case of Claude, much more than we initially expected, because we were seeing Claude as the go-to solution for B2B connectors mostly, but not for B2C. And in March, when they did their initial press release with Booking.com joining the official connector store, they activated search among connectors as one of the features, which we call dynamic discovery. And that's what drives traffic crazy on those apps that are existing in Claude.
So what has to happen for in Claude to pull up Kiwi's search thing, right? I say I want a flight, and I'm looking for a flight. I haven't even done anything. I haven't even said I want to use Kiwi. I don't even have a relationship with Kiwi. Will it come anyways? Is that what the connector search will do, or will it ask me, "Would you like to use Kiwi to search for this?" Well, what will it flow? Because I'm not seeing these things pop up for me personally. Are you, Darren?
No, I'm literally just trying it right now. I just launched ChatGPT and Claude at the moment. Just seeing what it would do.
Like with any conversational agent, it's not deterministic. So reproduction vary from time to time. So we grab screenshots when we manage to get what we want. Here's what it looks like on Claude when you want to search for flights and you don't have any connector already connected. You see that now it suggests based on the existing connectors they have. Claude calls it connector, but that's the same as app on ChatGPT. And you can select which one you want to use. And for example, here you have the Kiwi one, Expedia, Last Minute, and To Travel.
Yeah, this is interesting. So Shannon, let me share my screen here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, I kind of did it. So, yeah, it's.
Were you going to share something, Darren?
No, because he basically, because I kind of got to that point there where it's like, it brings up that, but I noticed the behavior, because it's like you have this weird, like, effectively we kind of have this gatekeeper problem, right? Like because I go to ChatGPT and I just feel like apps are not surfaced in any way. Like it's not obvious to me they exist, where they are. And I just asked, like, can I book a flight or whatever? And I have the search connectors. It didn't try to search the connectors. It just searched the web. So you can see, so, you look at ChatGPT, I feel like ChatGPT is very oriented towards the kind of like the regular consume, like kind of like the Google use case of like, I just want information or I want to search, right? Whereas Claude is very different of like, when I asked it to find a flight, first it hit this permission error where it's like, because I didn't have searching connectors. So I had said, okay, I have to enable that. But then it actually went into more of like what looks more like a Claude code type thing where it's like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And it asks the various questions. And you can see it's getting into more of like a doing mode. Whereas like ChatGPT is much more in like a answer questions mode. Like it's a different. So it's like, I can kind of see how like Claude, the way they built their product, they're more oriented towards doing things like co-work and whatnot, where like that product's going to be a little bit more lend itself better to these integrations, because these integrations tend to be towards doing actions. Whereas ChatGPT, it just doesn't seem as like natural or something. But I really get the impression that, ChatGPT for whatever reason is kind of backing off or holding off a little bit on these apps, because they're not putting them in the front of, they're not putting up, like, they're not making it very easy for you to discover them or use it. So it's
interesting, right? Because it does feel like too, as they become an advertising platform, why wouldn't they make this the place where they are selling, right? I mean, hey, can you find me a flights to LA? here's a paid advertising.
I think, but so one of my basic things though is like, especially let's say if they're selling their advertising, right? What's the thing that you're going to want to do is like, just get them to my app, right? Why would I want to stay in chat? It becomes like an SEO type thing, unless you can be like, I give you an optimized experience that's so much better. But they've yet to prove that. And I think one of the difficult things is like, let's say searching for a flight, for example, is like, theoretically, you would think a chatbot could search for a flight better. But like, once you say like, I want a flight from here to here, right? I guess this is where MCP apps could really come in. It's like, once you say like, I want a flight from here to here, it can give you the first search. But after that first search and you want to refine it and stuff, you no longer want to type that. It's way faster to click. Just change a criteria, change this. Like, it's like, so the fully 100% sequential chat experience of like this and then this and then that is like, it's not very optimized for getting because like we're seeing where it's like, there's this idea of like, oh, chat's going to take over everything. And then we're kind of recognizing it's like, no, for like, known repeatable tasks, traditional UIs are way better than a chat. So I don't know. I think I've kind of gone off on a tangent there, or whatever, where it's like I struggle with like why ChatGPT should like really embrace this if they can't. Because like me as a user, I kind of lack imagination of like, I already went to ChatGPT for a reason. I basically wanted to ask a question. That's all. The only reason why I go. I want to ask a question. I want to know something. Like I don't really go to it to like also accomplish something, and I don't even know what. So it's like it's just not even obvious to me that
getting closer though. Darren, I think you're still in this case. I think you're just in still phase one. I think that there are definitely places where I see this working great, right? Again, the obvious answer is I've told ChatGPT or I've told my Claude more and more about myself to the point where, I am. It really is more of a personal assistant, and it's like it knows I fly United.
Yeah.
My preferences. It's like, look, I got to get a flight. This and this and this. What are the best options? Don't buy this today, Shannon. The prices are pretty high. Let's look. I'll keep watching it for a couple more days. Okay, the prices come down. Let's buy the ticket. Price hasn't come down really. We're gonna not buy the ticket. I found another airline. I kept looking. I think we're not that far away. It's just that they are so spread thin right now. They haven't optimized a lot of these use cases, and I think when the optimization of that personal assistant use case gets to the point where the coding assistant is, I think these are going to be really valuable.
Yeah, but you might be talking about a completely separate product. That's what I'm kind of saying is like, I don't, because the problem with ChatGPT right now is I see the thing that's really interesting is like, I usually only say very terrible things about Google. I'm like, Google's terrible, especially in the AI world, which is not fair, but I just say it, whatever. But what I've noticed is, because I have a Pixel phone and whatnot, is like, because the Pixel is integrated with Gemini, is like it's kind of easier to just go to Gemini than it is. I have to open the app to go to ChatGPT. Yeah. So I go to Gemini, but then also when I do Google search, that kind of immediately goes into Gemini too. And so the thing that I've noticed, I'm like, oh, Gemini is not that bad, and it's pulling me away from ChatGPT, right? So now ChatGPT is in this serious fight with Google, where it's like, oh, they have to like. So they need to fight for this thing of this like search the internet type use case and then get advertising because they're going to IPO. So it's like ChatGPT is like kind of in this situation where it's like, oh yeah, I completely agree. I get that personal agent use case thing, but it's like, it might be another app, because like what bugs me right now with, let's say, MCP.
I think what's going to happen is they're just going to buy Apple. Don't worry about it.
At some point
they'll just buy Apple, and then we'll have Apple ChatGPT or Apple Claude, and whatever that will be. Will be there's like, not that Apple will buy them, is that they will buy Apple. That's where we're from.
Yeah, but so the thing is like the thing though is like, what bugs me is this thing where it's like, it's like we're gonna build MCP apps and we're gonna create this ecosystem. I hate it when people like come up with the idea of like the answer is the ecosystem, because it's like, no, do a compelling thing and then ecosystems build, right? So
this is an ecosystem building around a compelling thing. What are you talking about? This is ChatGPT. It's pretty.
No, like, because that's what I'm saying. ChatGPT is eyeballs. You're like, there's eyeballs there, so I want to get eyeballs, right? Yeah. So the thing is like, oh, well, then can I plug into that, right? But that's the wrong design, right? The user is not like us. It's the business. It's like, oh, the eyeballs. Can I get my app into there, right? So like the demand is coming from the wrong direction. So what I'm saying is
like people are absolutely using ChatGPT to plan their vacations. Like they're like, help me with this, and this sooner.
No. Hold on, let me finish my statement. No, don't cut me off.
Give it some hand.
So, okay, this is what I'm trying to get to. Is like the thing with MCP apps is like screw ecosystem and integrations and whatnot. Just get an app experience working. Like why does not OpenAI or ChatGPT natively have their own experience that gives a better, because their whole experience is just chat, text. MCP apps is making the theory of like, no, I need to give you this like rich UI in the middle of here that somehow makes your experience better, right? Why doesn't ChatGPT have its own native version of that? That's awesome, because they're like, you know what? We figured out that booking a flight is just way better. So we're going to integrate booking. What I'm saying is like, we're trying to inject a paradigm that natively isn't even great to it. But maybe it could be, but maybe that's what I'm saying. It's like, this might have to be for apps to be successful, but then why do apps even have to be successful? Because it's like, is it like, it's like, is this a technology first thing where it's like, oh, well, phones had apps, desktops have apps, therefore it's like, because it just bugs me. Like I don't think it's like, it's not taking off like crazy.
All right. Fred, you are a lovely guest. Maybe you'd like to have a fucking opinion here, since sorry,
it's good to see you debate on the
matter. Okay, Fred, tell us what you think, man. You're in the middle of this. You're seeing this stuff every day.
Yeah.
There is two things to the problem. There is, on one part, the registry and the ability to have experiences available to the agents that are better than native web search, and UI. And both have been put together under the MCP app subject, but they are really two different complete topics. Discoverability that happen on kiwi.com can happen without UI part in it. That's discoverability and having eyeballs using search flights features that they provide. That is really making the use of their app skyrocket, not the UI itself. And those two subjects should be treated aside. On the registry part, so exposing people to a lot of various experiences, I think we are getting closer to the point where indeed ChatGPT is merging ChatGPT and Codex together to have something closer to Claude Cowork that can do stuff for people instead of just answering questions. And I see very soon a future where ChatGPT as well as Claude will be able to interact with multiple app or connector to fetch many different results from many different brands in order to craft something specific for the user, whether it be a dedicated UI packaged by one of the app or packaged by the host is a complete different topic, because if you're already in the conversation because your connector got called and flights that you provide get mixed in the list of flights available to the user, end game for you. You got a new acquisition channel that's open to thousands of people. And that's what brands are aiming for. If on top of that, they can also show their brand with UI, they are very happy, because they can show kiwi.com icons and SVG inside the conversation and be remembered as a brand. What they fear is being just a provider of flights that nobody knows the name of. And that's what drives business to go one step further for the UI part. But the game is really at the discovery part, not the UI part. UI is the discussion that we have now with brands that wants to be featured in chat, that host wants to control to give a better experience for the end user. But it's not where the money is. The money is on distribution and discovery.
Let's be honest. I mean, the money for if ChatGPT decides it wants to get into travel, it should not be partnering with Kiwi or Expedia or any of these companies. It should just become a Kiwi or an Expedia, and because they're already just aggregators. They're not they don't operate planes, right? So like, there's no reason that Kiwi should be prioritized by, by other than if they're sending money back to ChatGPT. The only reason ChatGPT should care whether you use Kiwi or Expedia is who's paying them. And quite honestly, then they should look at it and think, well, if they can pay me, I could probably just do the same thing as them, since I have the eyeballs, and cut them out, because I can also have a relationship with the booking platform, which is Apollo, and has nothing to do with either of them, because all they ever added was search and UX. And if I've got the search and the UX, why do I need Kiwi? Why do I need Expedia? Why do I need Orbitz? And the same goes for, to be honest with you, the same goes for a lot of product categories, right? Like, why do I need, like I may want to have an insurance marketplace, but I don't need to partner with an insurance marketplace. I am an insurance marketplace now. So I may as well just go direct to the insurance companies. And I may want to have a relationship with Amazon because they can deliver, but I don't need to have a relationship with any other kind of search product that helps me find products. I can just partner with Amazon and Carrefour and whoever, like the delivery side, right? And I think that's the thing, is there's a lot of companies who have been middlemen who have made money in the web for a long time by being search and discovery type partners for delivery people. They may have a really hard time.
10 years ago, probably the same conversation was happening on Google with shipping the Google Flight features, killing Kiwi.com, and it didn't happen. So I'm less bullish on the capability of an OpenAI or an Anthropic to really play on verticals that are not their native playground. And I still think there are places for those companies, because at the end of the day, they will become at some point headless. They won't be featured as a brand, full existing brand, because they will be shipped through other platforms like ChatGPT and Claude, but they will still own data and knowledge of process, which are the only two things that make their business valuable at the end of the day.
But there was a time, it's not that way anymore, but there was a time when Google could kill businesses. They could just launch features, build their own thing, and they could kill it. Like, that's kind of gone away, because like one of the things that's, I think, very difficult about traditional, say like Kiwi.com or something. Those guys are really smart. I actually really like their app, and they're really ahead on technology and stuff. So, but like, so they're so it's hard. Let's take Expedia, because they're more boring or whatever. Is like for them to like, how do I integrate my app into chat, this new paradigm? It's just a whole, where it's like, if OpenAI is like, okay, I'm gonna build my own flight booking thing, they're gonna reimagine the whole freaking thing from the bottom up, right? So this the thing is like they could invent the model and then lose because then Expedia goes, oh well, I can just pivot to the way you did it, and then whatever, because they're like an incumbent or whatever. But it's like, because I think it's one of the things about these chat apps right now is like, we just really don't know what is a good experience. It's like, because that's what I struggle with, because I spent a lot of time with MCP apps, and I built this thing Nanobot and stuff like that, where I really like, I get so excited about the technology, but then at the end of the day, it's like, well, what can I do with this? And I'm just always like, it's always like, well, theoretically, it's like, well, I could do that. But then it's like, but how? And like, when you actually try to build it, then it's like, oh, it's not actually as good as I thought. Not saying it's not possible, but we're just definitely not there.
Yeah. There are a few apps that's definitely worth a look, especially the Excalibur app. If you're doing a little bit of Excalibur to do quick schematics and stuff like that, blowing my mind, really. That's where MCP app shines the most. But I do agree with you that we are lacking a lot of amazing experiences like we had at the launch of the iOS App Store back in the days, with the 500 first apps that were genuinely better than websites and what you could do with websites.
So this is what bugged me about, is like with MCP apps, is like, based on kind of like the technology integrating stuff, is like, it kind of got into this like, okay, well, it basically became a tool renderer. So it's like tool output renderer, right? Where it's like, oh, we're basically, here's a little blob of content, and it's effectively static, kind of, sort of. You can hack around it, like you've done some amazing things, but like the design of the data and everything is just kind of like, we take that output and we put this blob here. Then later we take the output and we put the blob there, right? Where it makes way more sense to me, where it's like, oh, if I'm chatting or whatever, I can spin open like a window, a full thing to the side, and that's the workspace that I'm collaborating. So now it becomes more like a traditional app of like, oh, this chatbot is now collaborating on this visual asset here that I can click and interact with, and then I can talk with. But like, that's not the direction it went, because that was like when I built Nanobot, that was my very first like demo, is something that looked more like that, because that seems interesting, where it's a live application. But then theoretically, because like that makes sense to me, because that's what you're seeing like everyone's doing anyways. They just take their traditional UI, put a chatbot on the side, and the chatbot can then integrate with the application. You know, so it's like, well, I don't know, just flip it. So I go to the chatbot first. But anyways, but that's kind of not what happened or whatever.
Guys, we are at an hour.
Yeah.
Dave, thank you for the comment. I mean, I think that these tools, Gemini especially, is interesting because, you know, Darren, to your point, it already knows my apps. It already knows a lot of my identity stuff. It already knows a lot of things. I mean, Google remains the wild card, I think, for a lot of people in this space. But with that, I think we need to wrap. But
we can continue this conversation for another hour easily.
Someone says that Gemini is already connected to Gmail and those things, whatever. Which like because I realized when I was doing a lot of this assistant stuff, if you just connect assistants to your productivity suite, like Docs, email, and whatever, that gives you like 90% of what you want, right? So, and I was amazed at how poorly Gemini is actually integrated to this stuff. But like, if they can fix that, they have this huge, like, I'm actually amazed right now. Like, this is why I always just talk crap about Google, is like how poorly Gemini.
It's worse than that, dude. If they connected it right to G Cloud too, because honestly, you put all of G Cloud, Firebase, everything in G Cloud, it's as good as Vercel, if not better, with more options. And I mean, it's really rich. You take all of G Cloud and all of G Suite, and you stack that all into Gemini, and you're like, shit, man, I can build anything with anyone with just their Gmail account and a fucking credit card.
So it's so stupid, because I go to ChatGPT because ChatGPT knows about me, because it knows everything, right? But then like the thing though is like Google knows all those same things. Plus they have all my data, my emails there, my Google Drive, like I have a Pixel phone. They own my freaking life, yet Gemini doesn't have access to it. And it's just like, it drives me nuts, because the patterns are there now too. It's like, because I know exactly how to send an email. It's just a human in the loop confirmation for dangerous things. It's very simple. So it's just, anyways.
Just for the sake of it, Gemini is coming around to MCP app.
Yeah.
They announced that Google I/O, they are going to ship 30 first experiences. They've crafted it because they wanted the experience to be delightful in terms of UI. It's a kind of a porting of A2 UI inside MCP. So it's not very clear if it's exactly the XTAP extension, but they are coming around and they are providing some similar experiences that we see in ChatGPT and Claude in Gemini. So hopefully it goes for a better experience. I hope so.
It's funny now, you really look at Microsoft and you're suddenly like, oh, they may be at a massive disadvantage on end users and like just humans. You know, they've got all sorts of workers, and you would think this would help, and Copilot remains pretty important. But then you're like, but where are the nobody?
I mean, I just can't believe the success that Claude desktop is having in the enterprise market, which is just like, it's just like how much Microsoft missed that. It's like, but I see a lot of people who are like, oh, well, I have to use the crappy Copilot clone of, you know, like that's what I get. I don't get the actual Claude one. So it's like, if Microsoft just continues to kind of clone, they'll probably be fine. But yeah, they're out of strike. But they own enterprise users. So I mean,
look, they're in great shape. I think they all should be fine.
Yeah, everyone
they'll probably don't need our concerns. Guys, we can wrap. This was super fun, Fred. Glad.
That was awesome.
Here.
Thanks again for having me.
Great to have so many people joining us today to chat about this, and hopefully we will keep diving into these kinds of topics. Fred, great to see you again. We'll hopefully see you soon in Amsterdam.
In Amsterdam, yes, I'll be there. Hope to see you all there.
All right, take care, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.